2009, From Software released a PS3 exclusive title, Demon's Souls. Praised for its unconventional take on narrative and high difficulty, it left an imprint in the video game industry by redefining the status quo of the modern game. From Software did it again with Dark Souls in 2011, but fell short in its sequel with a backlash from fans over its many cut-and-paste tactics and less cleverly designed world. Independent from any narrative constraints and exclusive to the PS4, From Software brings us Bloodborne. Set in a decrepit Victorian city by the name of Yharnam, Bloodborne gives players a whole new world to explore, as well as a complete retooling of From's signature combat. Does Bloodborne purge the curse, or fall prey to the hunt? Much like the Souls games, Bloodborne's narrative isn't direct or in your face. The story unfolds with the few NPC interactions and the many items found throughout the land. A curse plagues the city, and the inhabitants have either fallen into its grasp or become victims of those infected. It's a lonely road, and much of the events that transpire leave the players in a puzzled state questioning each choice made along the journey. The stories of the Gothic city seep through the cracks of the shattered windows and the decaying walls of stone, giving the game a Lovecraftian horror theme about it. After a brief cutscene and character creation screen, you'll be thrown into the shoes of a hunter from a foreign land that has traveled to Yharnam for the hunt. You'll be guided from the Hunter's Dream, a limbo-like area that your character is trapped in, while the NPCs will give you a clue of what to do and where to go without revealing much of the dire circumstances befalling the city. The Hunter's Dream also acts as a central hub area for most of the game, where you'll level up, purchase items, or upgrade weapons akin to Demon's Souls Nexus or Medulla from Dark Souls 2. Dropping the heavy armor and shields, the combat has seen some major changes. It's much faster and removes the shield circling strategy that players have used in the past. The combat is now almost entirely dodge-based, relying on timing and quick reflexes instead of stamina management. In place of a shield, players are given a firearm in their offhand, which can either allow them to stun enemies or even parry them if timed correctly, as well as dealing damage from afar. Fans of Castlevania and Devil May Cry will feel at home with both the combat and the aesthetic. The items and weapons are unique in both their design and gameplay elements. These crude instruments were designed for the hunt and for taking down the largest of beasts. A folded bone scythe could swing like a machete in one form, or unfold into a scythe, gaining range at the expense of speed, while a fast-swinging sword can transform into a massive two-handed hammer on the fly. This accommodates plenty of playing styles, as certain weapons will be more useful in different situations, while allowing for some unpredictable PvP moments. Most of these weapons are viable, but there aren't near as many as one would come to expect from a Souls title. There's no crazy equivalent to Smo's hammer, or even a Moonlit Greatsword for that matter, which has showed up in almost every one of From Software's previous games, including Kingsfield and Armored Core. Magic has also taken a backseat. There are a few spells in the game, but they aren't acquired until later on, and will all consume ammunition rather than utilizing a mana bar, making it more of a secondary playstyle. Gameplay elements such as the character's weight have been removed, and many of the stats have been simplified. There isn't really a best set of armor in the game, as they all provide protection against different things. One piece of armor might be better suited for protecting against poison damage, while another could be better against physical or fire. The armor sets look great, and have definitely taken the generational leap, as fabric plays a major role in terms of the visuals, simulating the real thing gracefully, as it gives the world a nudge towards realism for a more immersive experience. The graphical jump between Dark Souls 1 and 2 was minimal. It left many disappointed, seeing as a lot of the props and weaponry were the exact same. Bloodborne steps it up with the largest leap forward in terms of graphics. The art direction is superb, with its Victorian-inspired architecture. Partnered with the PlayStation 4's power, it stands as one of the best-looking games currently on the market. The land is vast, and the intertwining world is handled with the same care as the first Dark Souls, making exploration a treat. While the world is open and leaves players to their own devices, there are always clues guiding you in the right direction, as lanterns illuminate NPCs, ladders, and objects of interest, always giving you a clue of where to go next. Those who are disappointed with Dark Souls 2's world design will be pleasantly surprised, as Yharnam has that same level of verticality featured in the first game, with its many cleverly designed shortcuts and interconnecting areas. You'll often wander to a new location just to see areas you've previously explored in the background. The city was very carefully planned in terms of the layout and design, as the amount of effort put into the environment certainly shows. Bloodborne is also packed full of secrets that are quite easy to miss if you're not using a guide, much akin to areas like the Painted World from Dark Souls 1. Fans of the original will also be happy to know that the ragdoll physics have once again been implemented. Kicking around a defeated enemy's body and watching it flail about has never been this satisfying. The backdrops are gorgeous, and if you see a building in the distance, it's more than likely you'll be paying a visit at one point, beating the inner explorer in all of us. From Software took no shortcuts in the main areas of the game, while the dungeons, on the other hand, are a major low point. Included with the main game is the addition of Chalice dungeons. While at first glance these may seem like a massive amount of new content, they quickly wear thin. Most of the dungeons consist of venturing through darkened corridors while encountering some new enemies along the way. Each level of the dungeon has a boss and sometimes a few additional paths to explore, and while the dungeons do feature some unique enemies and some of the hardest bosses in the game, the rooms and assets are constantly reused. Expect to see some of the same rooms close to 100 times if you plan on completing all the dungeons. They try to reskin the rooms, but it doesn't take long to realize how lazy From Software was when it came to this feature. Even the later dungeons, such as the Ailing Lauren Chalice, which takes place in the desert, still has the exact same rooms as the first dungeons, except with an added, grainy sand effect. While some of the boss fights are challenging and unique to the dungeons, the majority of them are just regular enemies that have been scaled up or bosses that have previously appeared throughout Bloodborne's campaign. This feature could have been a lot more enjoyable if players were given the tools to create their own dungeons out of the preset rooms available, and then allowed to open them up so that their friends and other players could invade. Although Bloodborne is an entirely new IP, it borrows a lot from its predecessors. Some resemblance are subtle, while others are straight rips. It's nothing many would complain or gripe about, such as sound design, which has always been a high point, especially when facing a boss. Ambient noise still takes point in the world, which has always complemented the atmosphere of every Souls title, while epic orchestral scores are reserved for the many boss fights. Despite being composed by different composers from the other titles, the music still feels very much like a Souls game. If you're a newcomer, prepare yourself for a unique soundtrack experience. Series staples such as invading worlds, summoning friendly players, notes, and ghosts are all present, but so are some of the bugs, unfortunately. There are areas with the odd frame rate dip, but nothing as bad as the original game's Blighttown. The long loading screens can also feel a bit tedious, but are understandable given the level of detail present in Yharnam. The Covenants, however, are almost non-existent in Bloodborne. The limited amount of incentives has removed a key component in the game's replayability. Whether people were being jerks or helpful in the online community, the many Covenants allowed opportunities to experiment with the PvP system, and honor an allegiance with some attractive perks. While still having a New Game Plus feature, it doesn't introduce any new enemies or mechanics in the way Dark Souls 2 did. That, coupled with the fact that there aren't any Covenants to level up or new items to find, means that the game isn't worth going through multiple times, unless you're looking for a platinum trophy and to see the game's multiple but brief endings. Online co-op has been improved, but the system is needlessly complicated, especially when inviting a friend to a dungeon. The level thresholds are appropriate, but you'll need to navigate a few menus and sit around and wait a while for someone to answer the call of your beckoning bell. It works well enough for random player encounters, but as usual with anything related to the Souls series, you're discouraged from playing with anyone you actually know. Hopefully From Software can lighten up on their restrictions in future titles. Ultimately, Bloodborne is a step forward but also a step backwards for From Software. It features stunning visuals, refined combat, and an amazing world to explore, at the expense of difficulty and content. The The game does feel quite a bit easier when compared to past Souls titles, but that will ultimately depend on your playstyle. The main game is also quite a bit shorter than Dark Souls 1 and 2, especially when you factor in the lack of replayability, as the dungeons don't offer as much enjoyment as they should. After a lack of solid exclusive titles, and one of the worst generations for video gaming thus far, Bloodborne, regardless of its shortcomings, is still the title that best warrants the purchase of a PS4.